Years of work go into an exhibition, and no digital layer should compete with it. This one is entirely optional. Visitors reach for it when they want to know more, at their own pace, and set it aside when they don't. The collection speaks first. The app only answers when asked. That freedom takes two forms. A visitor can wander the museum however they like, opening the digital layer whenever something catches their attention. Or they can follow a route the curators have designed and let the museum lead the way. Both work in the same space, and the choice belongs to the visitor. In the next two sections, we will first show the visitor's wandering behavior, and then the visitor following the route defined by the curator.
At El Barranc de Gafels, next to the Ebro River, one of the most complete settlements from the late Bronze Age has been preserved. Its streets cross at right angles, and the houses, very narrow and elongated, share walls with one another. They were built with stone at the base and mud brick walls, topped with an almost flat roof made of mud and reeds resting on wooden beams. Inside, the walls were plastered and painted ochre, and among the remains, numerous ceramic vessels have been found that were part of the daily life of their inhabitants. The Iberians maintained contact with other Mediterranean societies. Through the Punic markets of Ibiza, all kinds of products arrived from North Africa. From empuries and roses, the Greeks traded fine ceramic wares from Attica and southern Italy. There were also relationships of influence with the Gallic world. Among the many Iberian peoples living in what is now Catalonia, those in the coastal areas show remarkable urban, economic, and cultural development, while inland groups relied predominantly on farming and livestock. Around 600 BC, Phocaean sailors from Massalia, Marseille, founded Empurion. The settlement was first established on a small tombolo, present-day Saint-Martin d'Empuries. Later, they built a small fortified city on the mainland, next to a natural harbor. Emporion, which in Greek means market, was a port open to sailors from the most diverse origins. The original settlement grew into a polis that came to control a wide territory. Empuries played a decisive role in the cultural transformation of the indigenous societies and served as a gateway for classical culture into the Iberian Peninsula. In 1985, a hidden hoard of 148 bronze pieces was discovered near La Vercie, deliberately concealed among rocks. At the time, bronze was a valuable material that could be melted down and reused again and again. For this reason, experts believe someone hid this small treasure with the intention of retrieving it later, likely toward the end of the 8th century BC. 4 is a small Roman ship that sank between 70 and 80 BC in the Culip Cove, near Cape Creus. It stocked up on agricultural and manufactured goods from various origins, arriving at major ports such as Narbonne, and carried this cargo back to towns along the Catalan coast, located outside the main direct distribution routes. The documented cargo is highly varied, including around 80 amphorae of oil from Baetica, tableware produced in Gaul and Baetica, and oil lamps made in Rome. There is also a small number of amphorae of various origins that carried wine and salted fish. The recovered cargo makes it possible to estimate the size of the ship. A small vessel under 11 meters in length, with a beam of about 3 meters. Grinding grain into flour has always been hard work. Since the Neolithic, saddle querns were used, but starting in the 5th century BC, rotary mills began to appear, invented by the Iberian communities living in what is now Catalonia. Their operation was simple. Grain was poured through a hole in the upper stone, which turned against the lower stone, crushing it into flour. This invention spread alongside the arrival of iron tools, which allowed the land to be worked more efficiently. Around 1700 BC, the Bronze Age begins in this region, though the use of metal spreads very slowly. It was scarce and difficult to work, so only the most powerful families could own bronze objects. Everything changes with the arrival of iron. The first iron objects appear around 800 BC, but it isn't until 600 BC that its use becomes widespread. Iron is harder and much easier to obtain than bronze. Thanks to it, tools and weapons stop being a privilege of the elite. Farmers too begin to have access to good equipment for their daily work. Imagine a village with houses squeezed right next to each other, like puzzle pieces. That's what the houses at El Barranc de Gafols looked like many, many years ago. They were narrow and long, like hallways, with a stone base and mud brick walls. The roof was also made of mud and reeds, and almost flat. Inside, they painted the walls in orange-brown color. That's where they kept their pots and clay vessels for cooking and eating. A very long time ago, people started using a metal called bronze, but it was so hard to get that only the richest people could have it. Then they discovered iron, and everything changed. Iron was easier to find and stronger. With it, people could make tools and weapons for everyone, not just for a few. That way, farmers could also have good tools to work the land. In 1985, someone found a hidden treasure buried among rocks near Lavracy. 148 bronze objects. Why were they hidden? Bronze was very valuable, so experts believe someone hid it on purpose, planning to come back for it later. But it seems they never returned to get it. Many centuries ago, Greek sailors arrived by boat from far away and founded a city by the sea, Emporis. Its name means market in Greek because it was a place where ships came from everywhere to buy and sell things. Emporis became an important city and helped local people discover new ideas, objects, and customs from faraway lands. The Iberians, the people who lived here many centuries ago, weren't alone. They traded with other peoples around the Mediterranean. Products came from North Africa through Ibiza. Beautiful pottery came from Greece. The peoples who lived near the sea had more contact with these visitors and grew faster, while those inland mainly focused on farming and raising animals. Do you know how flour was made thousands of years ago? With a lot of hard work. At first, people ground grain by hand, little by little. But many centuries ago, the Iberians invented a mill that turned. You poured grain through a hole on top, and as the stone spun, it crushed the grain into flour. A brilliant invention that made the work much easier. More than 2,000 years ago, a Roman ship called Culip IV was sailing near Cape Creus when it sank. It was a tiny ship, shorter than an Olympic swimming pool. It was carrying treasures, amphorae full of oil, clay plates, oil lamps for light, and even wine. Thanks to everything it was carrying, today we know how ships traveled and what they transported back then.